Welcome. This is April 5th, 2021. We're combining this. We invited, besides the Northeast Kansas group, anybody that can make it with the Kansas Honey Producers Association. I just thought we should have a chick since we just got done this week. Anybody with chickens? Just a reminder, it was a month ago tomorrow that we would have had our Kansas Honey Producers meeting. If you missed it, we had Samuel Ramsey, who gave 2 talks, and we had Clarence Collison, who also gave 2 talks. We also had Cheryl Wiggins from Rolla Beekeeper Club out of Central Missouri. So excellent. Hey, it's hot today. I'm it's almost 80 degrees. I'm just not used to this. So this was the temperature outlook, at least for the beginning of the month. And you can see we're going to be way above normal. And I checked a few hives today, and they were looking good. I didn't really feed them too much. They're right on time. But the reason we're having all this warm weather is because of this the shift in the jet stream going a little bit further north, and it's because of this low pressure that's over in the Atlantic. So it's causing that to dip up north. So if we want to get right into it, the first question came from Brenda Muntz today, if she's on. Brenda, are you on? See if she made it. If not, we have these sessions recorded.
She's on. She just said in the chat box she was on.
Okay. Well, her first question was, during inspection, she saw one bee with deformed wings already. And her question is, should we do a mite test or just treat immediately with OA, if that's what you're treating with? And she's not able to move the whole highway to isolate. Becky, would you like to address?
Sure. If you are seeing deformed wings, you have a high level of virus in that hive. And I think we've heard people saying that once that happens and we're seeing that evidence of virus, that we may be too late to even treat the hive. But it's spring, it's lots going on right now. I would certainly treat. I would not use oxalic acid, although there are probably others who would disagree. I would not choose that because your hive has to be full of brood right now. And so if you're going to treat with oxalic acid, you would have to do one of those regimens where you're doing repeated treatments, and we've got a lot of brood building and the hives are full of bees right now and they're flying out every day. So it's going to be hard to find a day where they're all in the hive, and oxalic acid treatment would be really effective. I think there are other treatments that would be more effective for you than oxalic acid. And I would pursue those. I would definitely treat right now. Your Formic Pro or Mighty Way Quick Strips might be a good one. One of the Thymols would probably be a good one. And then you went on and said, I'm not able to move the whole hive away to isolate. And I'm not sure what you're talking about there, because moving the hive would have 0 effect on your mite levels. That really doesn't, that one doesn't impinge on the other. So I would guess that if you're considering that all of your hives may be infected, you should be checking that, and you can't just isolate one of them. So anybody else want to chime in on this? Thank you, Robert, but that's disturbing to see deformed wing this early.
That's what I was going to say. It's disturbing to see deformed wings this time of year.
Yeah.
And oxalic acid isn't that effective in the springtime, and it's not effective when you've got so much brood, and especially field brood, because whether you're using the dribble or the vapor, all you're going to do is get a knockdown of the phoretic mites, the mites that are already on the bees on the outside. Most of them are in the brood probably. So I'm not sure about moving the hive away to isolate it. Would you move it, Becky? I wouldn't move it.
I don't understand the purpose of moving, and if it was for a mite, moving the hive has absolutely no relevance to what your mite count is. So I don't, if it's talking about something else or I missed the point there, then we can talk about that. But no, there's no reason to move a hive that's got a high mite count, I don't think.
I agree. So Becky's our special events coordinator. She was in charge of organizing the classes this year, and I'll just introduce people as we go along. I think if I see them. Jolie should be on here. Jolie's our in charge of, do I have a current list here? Yeah, our youth scholarship program. Ed Darlington is our president. He's on tonight. I don't know if Jim Kelly's on. I can't exactly see everybody with sharing my screen. And Cheryl is on. She's our editor, so she's the one that sent you the invitations. I believe Brenda had another question also, and I wasn't quite understanding that altogether, but she said we had frames built together so that Larva was on top of the frame and in the box when we pulled the frames out. I believe this was the top box. Cheryl, I think this might be a possibility of she's seen drone larvae in fur cone.
Yeah, that's if it's between the first and the second box, when you pulled that top box, Brenda, that's drone brood, and all of your colonies should be making drone brood at this time. They're preparing for swarm season. And so they want to have enough boy bees to go out and mate with those virgin queens when they swarm. So you should be seeing drone brood in various stages in all of your hives, and you'll break those drone brood, the seal on those when you open those boxes apart.
It's a good opportunity to look for those mites that are possibly on those larvae. So that's a good way to see if you have a severe mite problem too. So next question, this is the one Becky sent me from Jay Francis. I have a hive that suffered big losses this winter. The hive is recovering thanks to some donated brood frames from a stronger hive. However, the queen is not producing large amounts of brood. Brood pattern is normal but small, maybe half a frame total within the one deep hive. There are small brood patterns throughout the frames. And if I could pick on Jolie, perhaps, what do you think this sounds like from this description, Jolie?
Well, it sounds like how long has that extra brood been in there? And did you just put brood in or brood and bees? Because if there's not enough bees to cover the brood, then some of that brood might have died in there. Otherwise, if you don't have many eggs, you could have a failing queen, but without having those other questions answered, I really can't. I don't have enough information, I guess.
Yeah, so that's kind of what comes to mind with me, is maybe the queen isn't so
So
good.
is that person on? Jay, are you on? Okay. So Jay, answer if when you put frames of brood in, you also had bees covering the frames. Yes, okay.
He answered in the chat.
Okay, yeah, I see that. And then how long has it been in there? So has it been in there for 1 week, 2 weeks? Two weeks, and you're not seeing any larvae or anything. If that's the case, then I think you may have a failing queen. Or she could have gotten chilled when your other bees, when you lost a lot of bees in the hive. What do you guys, Becky, what do you guys think, Cheryl?
Yeah, and I mean, it's possible you got a failing queen. What's the larva? Do you have any larva at all, Jay? What's the larva look like?
It says he's seen larvae, but how do you know the queen is failing?
Well, in 2 weeks, you should have several frames of eggs and larvae. And if you only have a small patch of it, then you don't. So either we don't have all the information we need, or
How many frames of bees does your colony cover? I mean, if you have a weak enough colony, she's not going to outlay her workforce. So I
or
guess,
and what'll keep the brood warm at night. So
right. So how many frames do they cover when they're more clustered?
2 frames, maybe?
Frames, then you're probably not going to have very much.
right.
Yeah.
Then actually rereading this again, I think you're probably normal. And as more bees emerge, the queen will start laying out a little farther. Because it says you have some small brood patterns throughout the frame, so.
Jay, we had this, we experienced this a couple years ago, and we had a queen that we thought we would have to replace. We had decided that she was not doing what she needed to do and we were going to replace her. And while we were waiting for queens to arrive, we gave them a frame of bees and brood. It was young brood, a good frame of brood, and then bees all over it. So we did that. And then we went back in and immediately could tell that the hive was beginning to build up. So if at this point in time you have given them frames of brood and you're not seeing them respond, I think maybe it is that your queen needs to be replaced. She may not be doing that, because you should see her start to kick in and really start to grow some brood right now. And so, I mean, you can keep feeding them frames of brood and keep bolstering them. It's like making a split, except that it keeps dwindling instead of growing. So it probably would be a good thing to plan to replace your queen, give them some more frames of bees and brood if you have them, to keep that hot colony going. At least that's my thought. That the one that we had that we've done that for, that I remember most dramatically, was slam bam, and they kicked off and went, because wasn't a problem with the queen. It was just a low number of bees.
Yeah, and this might be where if you have a situation, if you had more than one colony, you could take from the stronger one. Again, still, but you can't give them too much. It sounds like that's what you did. You got some donated brood from somebody else. So, okay, I hope that helped that question. He had another one. Says, I know it was mentioned in the previous meeting, but I would love some video instruction on marking a queen. I don't feel comfortable doing that unless I see someone do it and how it's done properly. Is Christy on?
Yes.
I don't know if Christy is planning on, but I think Christy's
Yeah, I'm
planning
here,
on doing
Bob.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear
Would
me?
you like to? I can hear you. Would you care to address that? I don't know if you had plans on making the.
Actually, this month's program, I'm doing a presentation on finding and marking the queen.
Excellent. So hope you won't be able to miss. It'll be in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from tonight will be the monthly Northeast Kansas meeting. So that
Right,
would
and
be a
then
way. I'm sorry, go ahead.
we're doing that, and then a video on how to install a package of bees, and possibly doing an OA treatment before your before your brood's capped in your package.
Great. Well, that'll be a meeting you won't want to miss, Jay. And Becky, I'm sorry, Christy usually does the queen marking at the fun days too. So, okay. Let's see, the next one. I think that was it for Jay. And then Nick Hockman had a question, and I believe that's the end of the questions that we had for tonight. So at least that were received prior to the meeting. So if we look in the chat box, we can start there. It's now 16 after, Becky, so we have 44 minutes left for you. Running on time. See if I can get to the top here. So Nick had a question. He said, can old comb be scraped off of plastic and foundation reused, or is it worth the effort? Can scraped comb be melted down into wax? Well, Christy, I think Christy's our best wax renderer, and I don't want to pick on you 2 times in a row, but would you like to address that, Christy?
Sure. If you have plastic foundation, you can scrape it off or power wash it off. I know some people power wash off that old brood comb. If you choose to do that, I would do one of 2 things. I would melt some beeswax and take a paintbrush and reapply some beeswax to that plastic foundation. And you can render that wax. There's not a whole lot of wax in brood frames because there's a lot of castings left behind after the development of the bee in that cell. So depending on how old it is, the older it is, the less wax you'll have in any of those combs that you scrape off of the foundation. But if you choose to render it, do a double, no, first put it in a pot of water, put 2/3 of your scrapings, fill your pot full, and then fill the rest of it full with water and bring that to a slow boil. And then pour it into like a plastic dish pan with a screen, like some window screen across the top of that dish pan to catch all that debris that's going to be caught up in that wax, old cocoons and so forth. And then go ahead and let that harden overnight, and you'll have a cake of wax that'll float on top of that water. Me personally, that's a lot of work to go to for a brood frame. I mean, it depends how much time you have and how valuable your time is. Me personally, I would just pop that piece of foundation with the old comb on it out of my frame and pop in a new piece of foundation. That's one of the beauties of plastic foundation, is you can pop them in and out of frames. But if you have the luxury of lots of time, then you can go ahead and scrape it off or power wash it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what it all comes down to, time and money. The next question I have is from Dave Murphy. He said, last week I moved brood from the top hive box to the lower. It appears that half the brood died, I assume due to freezing temps that night. Is there a rule of thumb for when to invert hive boxes? And it's been an odd month. Let's see, Ed Darlington. Haven't called on you very much. Would you like to answer that question about reversing?
Well, I'm probably not the right one to answer that question. I haven't really done that much of it. I just watch when the bees move up or down and know what they're doing. And so typically the only thing I will do typically is rearrange some of the frames around the brood so I don't disturb them and I give them room to expand. But in terms of moving it up or down, typically the bees do that. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened. Why the brood would have died if he moved the bees. Sounds like
well,
we maybe need more information.
but with a cold snap, and if the bees don't access, because I had some hives that died that were just chock full of honey, and I think the problem is last year, I was not able to really take care of the hives the way I should have. I was limited both in the summer and in the fall from lifting. And so I didn't provide empty boxes. And so they had, once all the brood hatched and they start going toward winter, they didn't have room to put, they filled it all up with honey. And so they just died because there was too small, not enough brood, not enough bees to keep them warm enough. And then when that final cold snap hit, they were toast. And it was all my fault. It was nothing that the bees did wrong. It was strictly that, and I knew with the two operations that I wasn't going to really be able to do them right this year. And so I knew that was a risk.
And it wasn't cold it wasn't warm like it is today. Let's see, Sienna Leon has a question. When doing a split, is it advisable to relocate the new hive temporarily? If so, for how long? What are the thoughts about hops-based mite treatment? So there's two parts. Cheryl has been moving bees all week. What do you think about moving a split and doing one? Miss Burkett. When you unmute yourself.
What was the first question? I was reading in the chat box.
Okay, when doing a split, is it advisable to relocate the new hive temporarily? And if so, for how long?
Well, do what I do or do as I say. Or both.
How many hives did you move this past week?
Well, I moved entire hives. He's talking about moving a split, right?
Right.
After he splits. If you're going to leave the split on the property, you really should shake in a few extra frames of nurse bees, because all your foragers that have been out of the hive know where home is, and they're all going to fly back to the hive that you took the split from. That's not saying that you can't leave that split on the property. If you wanted to split and move them off the property, I'd move them for a minimum of 3 days and then bring them back. And you'll probably get different people say different things about that.
How far would you have to move them?
Over
3
their,
days.
on their flight range. Usually most bees will range out about 2.5 to 3 miles. And you
Thanks.
leave them there for 3 to 4 days, bring them back.
Thank you.
But if you're going to leave them on the property, which I do that too, you just need to shake in some extra bees, especially if we're going to have some cold nights, because you don't want your brood getting chilled, depending on how many frames of brood you put in your split.
Does it sound like you're going to have to move those, Sienna? Or you plan on doing it in the same yard?
They'll be in the same yard, but if I can find a place to move them, I was thinking that might be a good idea, just to try to get them not to drift back to the original hive.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good, because if that population gets too low, you're defeating the whole purpose. So, you also had another question. What are thoughts about the hops-based mite treatment? And
Well, she could also exchange places with her original hive, put her nuke in the spot of the original hive, and a lot of the bees that go back there. But a lot of the young bees are on your brood comb, so I don't know. We do it both ways, and
it's a
sometimes it
judgment
works
call.
and sometimes it doesn't. So
Yeah.
So.
She had the other question. What are thoughts about the hops-based mite treatment? I haven't used it in a while. Has anybody else?
Haven't
Jump in if you
used
have.
it, but I
The chip show.
I was just going to say, I think they were using it. They have used it in Nebraska, and Dustin Scholl was talking about it, and they were not pleased with HopGuard 2, whatever whatever they had out, but they're about to
No,
come out 3, and they think that the efficacy on it will be better. But you know what? You really should look into that before you use it. And I understand if you're using it, it's incredibly messy and you really want to have somebody else helping to do it. But Yeah, give it, look at it and
Oh,
investigate.
I
before
put
you
it
use
in, so we'll see.
Oh,
Okay.
let us know.
Yeah, report back next month. No, so with all these treatments, it's important to understand what makes them work, how they work, what are the opportune times. And all I recall is that the hop guard has always said to use it when you're practically broodless. And we're not really broodless until, latter half of October. And so it might be, there's some temperature range to it also. So don't know if it never worked that well for me personally. And let's see, we've got Brenda back with a question. Can you please type these names of treatments in here? So I guess we'll do that. I'll see if I can find something real quick on it and put that in the chat for you, Brenda. Brenda also said I guess these are comments for that discussion. Someone suggested that we isolate. Well, we addressed that. You don't have to. We don't. I don't. But I've always learned that if you have to treat one hive, you should treat all of them in your yard. But and they did treat with OA in the fall. It might not have worked that well. And should we test all the hives nearby? Might be a good idea. I probably would. If you have a problem with that one hive, you might have it with the others. Ed says, when do small hive beetles or wax moths typically arrive? And Becky, do you have much experience with small hive beetles over there?
Thankfully, no. So honestly, I'm not sure they arrive so much as they spend the winter. So they just are there. Now the wax moths, we don't usually see a wax moth much before the 1st of June. It depends on weather somewhat, but yeah, that's us. But no, thankfully, I think it's because we have poor soil, but not many beetles.
Yeah, I think it depends on the year. I only saw one beetle today.
Maybe a better question would be, one of the things that I harvested honey this last week, and typically I used to have a freezer where I'd freeze the frames, and I was thinking of putting the things out to let other bees clean them out. And I was really worried about, when do I have to worry about either wax moths or small hive beetles getting in before I store it? Or do I just use the, not mothballs, but that a chemical that it's a lot like mothballs to protect the hives, because I'll need to store them for a while.
Well, I know in my own experience that we don't get wax moths until towards the end of May, and they come up with the warm air currents. So we have a while before they get up here. And the hive beetles tend to overwinter with the colonies now.
Yeah, I don't appear to have any small hive beetles as an issue. So if I isolate that and seal those boxes up, I should be okay.
Yeah, well, they like to get in with the live bees. It's been too cold for them, but it's warm now.
Yeah, thank you.
Brenda was asking, is it okay to break the seal of the larva? Yes, you have to. That's Burcombe. Just make sure that, Brenda, if your inner cover has a shallow side and a deep side to it, it's time to switch it over so that the deep side is up. You don't want to violate the bee space, and they'll make extra comb in there, and you'll have to clean all that up right now. So, but yeah, take a look at those larvae when you break them and see if you see any mites. That's a good way to detect mites too. Then Ed asked if anyone had experience with a specific brand of extractor looking for a 2 to 4 frame unit that will be robust enough to last for years. And if I'll start this, and I'll ask Becky and Cheryl and Jolie. Well, we should ask Jolie. I don't know where her picture went. But Joey got married because of an extractor, so she'd be the best one to talk. And I have the same kind she did when she got
I do
married.
too. I do
What
too.
was the question? Repeat it, sorry.
Does anyone have any experience with a specific brand of extractor looking for a 2 to 4 frame unit that would be robust enough to last?
Mm. You know, we really like Dadan equipment, and Cecil, you know, as was mentioned, had an electric 6-frame Dadan extractor, and that was the only reason I married him. And because now, you know, 30 years later, I do kind of wonder if that was a good enough reason. So if you're single, start going to the bee meetings and see if you can find someone with the extractor. But actually, we really like Dadan. We like Maxant. I would really say stay away from those plastic ones. They're just really not worth the money. And some of the European, the
Some of the
stainless steel isn't like our stainless steel.
Some of the licensed ones are pretty decent too.
Yeah, the licensed ones are pretty nice. That's a good point.
Hey,
That's
Ed,
pricey.
Ed, I have a question for you. Do you want a electric one or a hand crank?
Well, I think for this person that is looking for one, a hand crank would be okay. You know, here again, they only have 2 hives, and they had originally bought a plastic one, and it just, everything was wrong with that. I mean, I thought at first they said it kept hitting the frames, it kept hitting, and so when I looked at the unit, I had to re-drill holes. It wasn't that it became loose. It was just, and to clean it's just a nightmare. And so I suggested that we get rid of that and just go to a stainless steel one. But I wondered if anybody had, you know, I looked online and there was one, I think it was Dedant, and they said that they had it for 10 to 15 years and never had any trouble with it. Unfortunately, that model is the one they've discontinued. So I don't know anything about the new model they have. I've seen some, you know, that have really small motors on them. I mean, like 120 watt. And I wonder if they're even worth messing with. It seems like it's a small, you know, wattage. You're going to have 750 watts for a full horsepower. And obviously you don't need that. But I just, like I say, so primarily I'm looking for the main unit, and I have on occasion taken the crank off of these hand crank ones and put my drill motor on it and spin it, you know, faster. But you need to have a robust unit. You can't have one that's got all plastic gears or whatever in it. So,
Ed, have them give me a call. This is Marty. Have them give me a
okay.
call. I just picked up a warehouse full of boxes and stuff, and there's an extractor in there. I think it's a 4-frame. I don't remember exactly. I don't know what kind it is, but it's metal gears. It's a red top on it. I'm thinking it's a decent one. They used to
Okay.
have, you know, they used to have a bunch of bees, and they got out of the business, and I ended up with about 40 boxes and stuff.
I'll
Extractor.
call you.
Yeah, give me a call. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm almost tempted to tell anybody getting into bees now that it costs $500 when you get everything, first hive and equipment. You know, you might want to budget $500 and a few $100 more just for an extractor. A nice one. Buy it. The saying is what? Buy it right or buy it twice. Better to put it all in one investment than buying over again. Sienna Leone, you know, that's so close, and I'm not saying anything, but there's a country in Africa, Sierra Leone. It's so close to that. I almost said Sierra, so sorry.
Heard that all my life, yes.
Okay. What's the story? They named you Sienna.
I'm named after the color. Remember the box of 64 crayons, burnt sienna, raw sienna.
Oh, great. Nice to know. Thank you. Her question was, can honey be sold that was extra at home, or do you need to do it in a commercial facility? And Sienna, I think.
It's a typo. It should be extracted, not extra.
Oh, extracted, okay. Extracted at home. Yes, certainly. I think we all sell our honey. Neighbors, friends, workers, co-workers, wherever you can. You do not need a commercial facility if you're selling it directly to someone. If you do a farmer's market, that's direct because you're doing it directly to the customer. If you're doing it at home to your neighbor or to a friend, you know, that's direct.
Thanks.
Let's see. Jay Francis says, I'm seeing larva, but how do you know the queen is failing? I think that probably was in our earlier discussion, but she's not laying very well. If you don't have very many bees and she's not taking off well, I mean, it's hard to say without pictures. Also, you can send them to me later if you want, of that colony, but yeah. And we don't know that queen. You don't know how old she is. You know, was she from last year or the year before? Did you buy her? Or did the colony make her? It's a little difficult to not know what's actually going on there. So let's see. I think Dale Helwig has a couple of pictures. Dale Helwig has a few pictures of queen cells on them already. I don't see any questions with them, but.
So the question's on down there, Robert.
Okay.
Is that a superseed cell or is that a swarm cell?
You know, they look so good. They're on the edge.
I think swarm.
I think swarm too.
Do you have it up, Robert? You want to share your screen? Yeah. Everybody can see.
Okay.
If you don't, I've got them.
Here's this one. Yeah, just by the size, they're close to each other, but they're not right on top of each other. They're at the edge. They're right on the burr comb. Did you shake some of the bees off of that to get a better picture?
This is actually from a client that came into the extension office with this today.
Okay. Yeah. That was that
I vote
picture.
swarm. I vote swarm. I think they look like swarm cells and they're beautiful cells, but
yeah,
you go, guys.
This is the same frame. Looks like swarm to me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we say swarm too.
I appreciate the help.
Thank you.
I wonder if that's the only frame they're on.
It is. It's the only frame that they're on.
Okay. So there's Dale. I didn't see that in time, but he says he's new to the group, but he's an extension agent. And what group are you out of, Dale?
Cherokee County Beekeepers Association down here in Columbus.
Thank you. And let's see, Branson says, what do you need to do if a farmer is spraying his field? I don't know. Jolie, Cecil, what do you guys do? Usually I don't know because I'm not out there during the time he's spraying it. I don't think my farmer sprays.
What do you do, Cecil, if they try to?
Other than talking to the farmers.
If you can't talk to the farmer beforehand, if they've already sprayed them, there's not much you can do. If they haven't sprayed yet, some people will put a wet sheet over their hive to kind of keep them cool and keep them in there. But if they've already sprayed, you're kind of out of luck.
This time of year, it's probably glyphosate or Roundup. They're killing the hen bit in preparation for planting. Sometimes farmer doesn't even know what they're spraying. They'll get themselves with a a company that does just routine applications on a timely basis, you can find out who he uses as his applicator. And you can probably get a rundown of what's on the agenda for spraying so that you'd have an idea what they're putting down. This time of year, it's going to be glyphosate and but from this point on, it'll depend what crop that they're treating, whether they're doing a combination insecticide, fungicide, or other stuff. So I would probably try to find out who his spray service is.
I screen mine in the night before they spray, and then wait for the next due, and then I'll let them out. You can get with your co-op, and they'll let you know if anybody's spraying within 3 miles of you. Every time I've had good luck with it that way, and haven't had any problems.
And what's the name of the other spray thing we can sign up for? We've had zero luck with that.
About Drift Watch.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
Drift
look.
Watch. We've had zero luck with that. It's best to talk, like he said, to your co-op, and if you can talk to the farmer, that's probably the best. So.
Some farmers still spray their own, but the vast majority are on with a applicator.
Yeah, and I think what we've learned from all of our talks is that when they combine an herbicide and a fungicide, that synergizes and causes a real issue, rather than if they're just doing an herbicide alone. Let's see. Okay. Next question. Jack Wilson says, we have raccoons in our hedgerow. Will they cause a problem for my hives? Who's got raccoon issues that would like to?
We don't, but did you see those pictures John Speckman posted on Facebook? That looked like freaking bear damage. I could not believe it was.
Were those?
It was raccoons, is what he said.
I thought those were humans and they're stealing equipment.
I didn't think so. I thought he was pretty sure it was raccoons. Didn't you think that, Cheryl? I mean, it was awful. And he said those hives had bees in them.
I thought bears when I first looked at it. I've never had problems with coons at my place, but we keep them well fed.
Yeah.
I don't think coons.
Gotta keep them out of your hives.
Yeah.
I've had an issue with raccoons this winter, and yes, they will tear up the boxes. They actually chewed through the 2x4 on the bottom box of one of my hives, and I caught 7 hives in the next
7 hives
week
or
and
7
a
raccoons?
half. 7 coons in the next week and a half.
Wow.
And they do this. Opossums will do that too, just like the skunks, like I wrote on the in the chat. But yeah, they're vicious. I actually had them one year chew 6 inches off the bottom of my chicken house door, which was wood, to get in, and they killed all my chickens. So, and I caught 15 of them at that site in the course of about 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Big families.
Yeah. They can be a problem.
I can see in the middle of winter if you're really looking for food, but thank goodness we haven't had that kind of problem.
I've got some that I feed, so I haven't had any bee problems with them though. Let's see.
Well, and I think for Cheryl, because like she said, she has them trained, and they're almost like pets because she feeds them along with her cats. They don't have any desire for that sweet treat because she keeps them nice and fat.
Well, I buy a 14-pound bag of Alpo for $12. It lasts me about 5 weeks, and I've been feeding mine for a year. And that was before that they got big on YouTube. Steve Christenberry says, after a couple-year hiatus, I'm starting over with 2 hives and getting a couple packages at the end of next week. What medication should I be using when installing the bees? I was going to order terramycin from Man Lake, and they said I have to get an order from a veterinarian. Is that a new thing? Nick, do you use any antibiotics or anything? Christy Sanderson, what would you recommend?
You can't get terramycin unless you get a vet to give you a veterinary feed directive. And that's pretty hard to find a vet that'll even write one for you. And honestly, I don't use terramycin anymore.
Yeah. No, there's a veterinarian, that restriction went in about 4 years ago, I believe, Steve, and none of us can get any of the antibiotics that we used to, but I didn't really use them. And terramycin is for prevention of American foul brood, or suppression of it, actually. So we don't really use any medications, just sugar syrup and the mite treatment. Anybody else think of anything? Yeah, times have changed. Lincoln DeBach, I believe, is one of our scholarship students. He's got a question: should I split this time of year so that my hive doesn't swarm? This is only my 2nd year of beekeeping, and my mom wants us to split before we lose a hive, before we lost the hive over the winter, and should I check for mites? Jolie, is the scholarship student, would you like to address his situation?
Yeah, I actually private messaged him and said we would come over and look at his hive and see if they need to be split. I think they have I think they have an extra hive, don't you, Lincoln? If they need to be split. And we'll look at it.
Okay.
And see.
Yeah, it all depends. Not every hive you'd want to split. Not every hive is going to swarm. And so it depends on where they are right now. Half the ones I looked at today aren't going to swarm, and I'm glad, because usually I have a lot of swarms.
Jolie, you wrote about that in the Buzzard, didn't you? About choosing, like looking at the hive and evaluating how many frames of brood, like the 1st of April. And it's the rule of thumb that we use. So
this was Wendell Omis's rule of thumb. Wendell's a long dead beekeeper, but we think he was the best beekeeper we ever knew. And so his rule of thumb was the 1st week of April, you would leave 3 frames of brood in the hive and take everything else. And if you leave more frames than that, your hive is likely to swarm. If then the next week you leave 4 frames, the next week you leave 5 frames, and then 6 frames. And then usually by then it's you're pretty safe, because you're going to start putting supers on, and some of the honey flow is going to start by the middle of May. So but yeah, so if your hive has more than 3 frames of brood, you can do all the reversing you want, but it ain't going to do a whole lot of good, because you know, some of the tricks people tell you, if you just have too much brood in there and too many bees, and that queen pheromone isn't being spread around because there's too many bees in there, they're going to be hanging in the trees. So you might as well split them yourself and save your bees and save your honey crop. So that's my 10 cents worth.
Thank you very much. Becky, we have 9 minutes left until we're at the top. Let's get you out of here on time. Okay, let's see. Jessica Martell made a comment: if you have hive beetles, buy beetle towels from Man Lake, pretty cheap and very effective. So it sounds like she's got good experience with those. And Lincoln said Swiffer pads work just the same. Um, and let's see, I think that's it. So Richard asked, is there any way to register your bees in the county to keep them from spraying in your area? And what is that? Again, Hive. What's the website? I know we've got it on our.
Hive Watch.
I think I've got a link to it on the homepage of the Northeast. Take a look and see.
Drift Watch.
Drift Watch, yeah.
Specialty Crop Site Registry by Field Watch. But
I know I'm on there.
I thought they renamed it.
Yeah, it was.
Is it Bee Check? Is it Bee Check now?
Watch. Yeah, but if you go to Drift Watch, it'll take you. You'll see Bee Check, and so I sign up, and then every year you have to reapprove your bee yard. I've never gotten a call, but my mother's. I've got 3 yards that are right there on the farm. 2 of them are right in the field, on the edge of a hedgerow too. I'm hitting everything. Great. Dave Murphy made a comment to solve the raccoon problem. Nail carpet, nail strips to the front and back of your hive. Coons will stop messing with your hives right away. Just don't. Make sure you're up to date on your shots. Tetanus, in case you get stuck. Mike Catsby's made a comment. He found an old newspaper article on Waldo McBurney. Read it soon, and he's put the link up there at the bottom. It's one of the last few comments out there so far. And Walter McBurney, just to make a comment, was a member of our Kansas honey producers. We honored him several times, but I think he was last around at our 100th anniversary, which was in 2004. Do you remember, Becky? He had a book. I've got his book, but he's been long since passed.
I have his book as well. I should look it up. He was a treasure out in Quinter, Kansas. So he is my favorite Waldo McBurney story was that he was talking to the Kansas honey producers and talking about a perspective on beekeeping. And he said, well, yeah, I've pretty much had bees all my life. He'd had them when he was like a kid, like 12 was when he had his first hive, but he really didn't get into bees until after the Second War. And we all just kind of sit there and went like, after the Second War, and kind of said, put things in perspective. That's my favorite Waldo McBurney story. So
the Second World War.
Yeah, after the second.
And he was a runner too. And he managed 100 hives right up till close to the last few years to the end. So Quinter, Kansas is where he was from. Christy Dunn may have just sent it to me, but she's asking about how does one go about getting a mentor? She's a 2-year beekeeper. She has 2 hives, each has 2 deeps, still feels like guessing most of the time. And she's attended a lot of the training that's been offered, but she's outside of Topeka in Carbondale. You know, that's a good question, Christy, because we have a lot of people that are trying to get mentors, and I never heard of mentorships until, you know, a few years, 10 years ago or so, but it wasn't that common. But yeah. I mentor a few people, but I try to do it in a group, and that's part of what we do in the association by providing these meetings is to give an opportunity for people to meet and get educated at our events. But I don't know. Anybody have any recommendations? Yeah.
I know of a beekeeping couple in Carbondale. I have not asked them whether they would be interested in being a mentor. So if you want to email me, then I'll try to do a connection and see if we can see if they're willing. And it's always nice to have somebody kind of close by to ask questions of that. Yeah, but great people. So I think you'd enjoy meeting them. They're farmers. So they're always busy, but email and we'll see if we can get you together.
Great. Okay, I think there's more comments coming in than questions. So we do have something special tonight, and Becky, we'll let you know how it goes. But Matthew Brandis came up with a quiz, and we've got 70 people on, but I think he's only limited to 25 right now. So when we get done with the Q&A discussion, we will try this quiz event out and see how well it goes for anybody who wants to stick around and attend that. But any questions right now that anybody else want to come up with that need answering right away before we sort of end the evening?
I think Jolie was wanting to say something about the value added products, the value added meetings. Jolie,
Okay.
Are you still there?
I think she says that they're taking off.
Okay.
And they want to ask someone else to announce it.
Becky's still here?
Becky is still here. Becky is still here.
2 minutes, Becky.
Okay, the Kansas honey producers. How do I start this? We really think that it's important for Kansas beekeepers, everyone, to recognize their Kansas Association. And our Kansas Association is the Kansas Honey Producers, serves beekeepers all across the state. And it's so interesting to talk with beekeepers in Hayes or out in Colby or something, and the different ways that our state interacts. But the thing that we all have in common is we all want to get the most out of our hives. We want healthy hives. We want to get the most out of our hives. We want to be successful. Towards that end, the Kansas honey producers are going to offer a series of programs on value-added products. What's a value-added product? Well, I kind of wrote about that in the buzzer this month, and it is taking your raw material, doing something with it, and increasing its value. So our raw material is honey, our raw material is beeswax, and to be able to do things with those that will increase their value. Towards that end, we're going to do a program a month. It's going to be the third Thursday. I did write about it in the buzzer, so check out your buzzer that Cheryl just sent out. And the first one is an awesome presenter. Her name is Megan Vetter. She's from Nebraska, and she's going to talk about batik, which you may not think, wow, that's a great way for me to make money because I have no artistic talent. That's not it at all. Think about new ways to do things with your beeswax, and then you can help other people do new things with your beeswax. So comb honey, we're going to talk about mead making and beer. We're going to talk about making candles. We're going to talk about all of these different things. And if you want the link emailed to you, become a member of the Kansas Honey Producers. It's a whopping $15. You'll get more than that from the first session you set in on, but you can attend for free if you would like by going to the website. Robert will put a link in the calendar on the KHPA website, and it is kansashoneyproducers.org. So that's the end of my commercial. Join us. It's just about 2 weeks away. So very good. Thanks, Robert. And I am out of here because you know, because that quiz just doesn't accommodate everybody. And I want you guys to try it out. So very good. Okay. See you later.
Thank you. Have a nice evening. So Matt, we'll take it over. If you'd like to take over, we'll see how this runs.
Yeah, I put the link in the chat. Let me throw it up on the screen here. I think I can support 100 users. So let's see. I'll put this up here too. Either you can use the link, or this is the website you can go to, and you put in this code. It's just 12 questions. We just have 12 little quiz questions, a little competition. once everybody gets in or give a chance to everybody get in here, I'll start it up. All right, we got 12 so far. Oh, there's a few more people joining.
I'm holding off just to see if we make it to 26.
And I will stop sharing my screen when we start, so there's no cheating or anything. So,
Well,
all right. Well, we've got 14 that joined.
The link is in the chat box too. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? It's gonna let me select all. It's not letting me copy them. There. Oh, okay.
Ask them. Tell them you don't know how to get in.
That's okay.
I had to right click on it. And then it took me into Safari, which I'm on a Mac, so.
Join my quiz right there.
Okay.
Now we're up to 25. I may be the 26th. So it goes on beyond 20, because there's 27 now.
Yeah, I think the teacher account allows up to 100. So
cool.
Joinmyquiz.com. We don't know how to join it.
That's okay.
Right click on it.
yeah, you have to go into your web browser like Internet Explorer or Firefox or Chrome or Safari, and you can just
Right
type
click
that
on
in.
that link. Yeah. Up to 29.
Yeah, I think if in the chat, I think he's saying if you right click on this link, it might open it up. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I had to right click.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll give this a whirl here real quick and see what happens. Let's see. How do I? Not even sure how I stop sharing. Stop share.
I think
All
you
right.
keep sharing. Do you keep sharing?
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
All right. Here, I'm going to go ahead and start the quiz.
Okay.
You didn't get it.
Okay.
Are you sharing the screen again?
I am. I think I did it the last time. I think I did it wrong this time, which is okay. Normally, I think you can do it as an interactive. When I did it as a demo, I could